Grandmaster Arjun Erigaisi and India go into the rest day of the 45th FIDE Chess Olympiad on perfect scores after Arjun's round 6 win over GrandMaster Sanan Sjugirov helped India to a 3-1 victory over Hungary. Once again, Arjun was a beast as he made it 6 wins in 6 rounds and has moved to 2,791.3 on the live rating list, 2,800 beckons, and it feels the only question is whether he makes it this tournament. His win over Sjugirov featured a pawn sacrifice in the opening that gained a big advantage on the clock, and his precision in the middle game and endgame was more than his opponent could handle. The game opens with 1 e4. And Arjun, will he go for something aggressive with the Sicilian? Or will he play something solid with e5? He goes for solidity, e5, but even in e45, Arjun is a player who likes to search for sharp lines. Let's say how Sanan continues. Knight f3 played, and Arjun brings his knight out to c6. Will we see the Italian now, or the Ruy Lopez? These are the main questions. Is also the Scotch. He plays bishop b5, the Ruy Lopez is on the board, and Arjun pushes the bishop away, a6, the main line of the Ruy Lopez. Bishop comes back to a4, and now knight f6 is the main move here. And he plays it. d3 variation exists. Castles is one of the main moves here. And Sanan thinks for a few seconds, and then castles it out. Now Arjun can play bishop e7, the closed Ruy Lopez. He can also take the pawn for the opened Ruy Lopez. He can play bishop c5, the archangels variation. So a lot of possibilities, but he plays d6, a slightly weird move, which could transpose back into the main line theory, but this has kind of thrown off Sjugirov, because he takes 10 minutes for his next move, rook e1. And Arjun instantly comes back and makes his move bishop d7. Look, then what Arjun wants is a slightly offbeat position where his opponent is out of his prep. It may not be that this position is particularly great for black, but the fact that his opponent has not studied it at home makes Arjun feel more relaxed and confident. He plays his pawn to g6 now. And Sanan has to decide whether he wants to go for d4 now. He does it, pawn to d4. This is mainline theory. Bishop comes out to g7. Well, if you try to win a pawn here, let's say take, and de, then white-black can jump in with knight e4 and the position is fine. So, that's the reason why Sjugirov plays h3, and Arjun quickly castles it out. Now, normal developing move is knight d2. To continue in this way, but already the position is slightly different from what you get generally in the Ruy Lopez, with the bishop on g7. He goes knight d2. I like how Arjun writes down his move with the left hand, plays with the left hand. He is a left-hander here. Way few players in the world of chess who play with their left hands, but Levon Aronian, Arjun, these are the few exceptions. C takes d4, played. Hand right has a beautiful center. So Arjun has to do something concrete, and he does it. He goes knight b4. He offers the trade of bishops. If you play bishop b3, my knight jumps into d3 and wins one of the bishops here. So that's the reason why Sanan decides to take. And queen takes by Arjun. And now something needs to be done about the knight d3 threat. So queen b3 seems very natural. He plays it, he attacks the knight. The knight has to be defended. And a very logical move is a5. That's exactly what Arjun plays. And you can kick the knight away. a3. But now the knight has an additional square to go back to a6. But anyway, Arjun goes back to c6. Taking this pawn would be incorrect because rook fb8 traps the queen. So that's the reason why right now the pawn is not possible to be captured. But d5 is a very interesting move. Because now, b7 is under pressure. He plays knight b8. Oof. Slightly unusual move because I'm sure that Sjugirov thought he would go knight e7, but knight b8 has kind of put him under some pressure because look at the time on the clock. Sjugirov down to 30 minutes and takes the pawn with 29 minutes on the clock. Arjun has 1 over 32 minutes. He's still in his preparation. This just gives him such a huge edge and so much of energy to continue. Knight a6. So he's given up a pawn, but he has good compensation here. His opponent comes back. Queen b3. Because he didn't want his queen to be trapped there, so queen b3 played. And now, knight to c5. He attacks the queen, and also puts pressure on the e4 point. The queen goes to c4. And now, a4 would clamp down on the queenside pawns. But then there is this very powerful move, e5, which creates a lot of problems. So that's the reason why he goes queen a4, offering a queen trade. And this is all preparation by Arjun, which is just unbelievable. It's move number 18 in some offbeat sideline, and Arjun is still prepared. e5, good move there by Sanan, because in this complicated position, it would be nice for him to trade off few pieces and make sure that he doesn't come under time trouble. Knight takes c4, and now d takes e5 seems like the best move. There's also possibility to take the pawn here with knight d5, but Arjun takes on e5. Now knight takes e5 by Sanan. So takes. And will Arjun capture the d5 pawn? I think looks logical. He takes it. Knight takes d5. With 1 hour 13 minutes on the clock for Arjun, 26 minutes for Sanan, the position is dead equal. Rook d1, the players could actually agree to a draw at some point now, but okay, there's still some play. Rook d1, attacking the knight goes back to b6. If you take here, then I can take cb, and then the knight on e5 is hanging. So he goes bishop e3, attacking the knight here on c5. And Arjun now plays knight ca4, defending the knight here, and attacking the b2 pawn. Bishop d4, defending here the b2 pawn. And now rook a to d8. Just keeping up the pressure here, Arjun, slowly and steadily. Maybe b3 could be an idea, but then I take here, and it's some trouble. So he took on b6. And Arjun is thinking, should he take back with the knight? Should he exchange the rooks, or should he play the most natural move, pawn takes on b6? If pawn takes b6, you do have to calculate things like b3. But then b5 is super strong, because then the knight is hanging if this knight moves. And ba is met with b takes c4, black is winning here. So b3 is impossible. Maybe f4 makes sense, trying to defend the knight here. You can see Arjun actually taking time to take the bishop. He's not yet sure whether he should take with the knight or the pawn, because knight takes also has its benefits. Clearly has its benefits, because if knight takes b6, then cb6, and there is some pressure down here. So he takes cb6. And Sanan instantly goes knight d7, a risky move to tell you the truth. Why is this so risky? Because after rook e8, which is kind of forced because your rook is attacked, white will capture the b6 pawn, but in return will lose the b2 pawn. And that is something very, very critical. Rook fe8, played. Look at the way in which Arjun sits on the board. Absolute calmness. Knight takes b6, played. And now he captures it back. Knight takes b6. White also captures. Knight takes on b6. And now bishop takes b2 has happened. So, the resulting position is still even, it's still equal. But the bishop looks slightly superior to the knight. And Arjun has a very small edge here, and this is the edge that he needs. Because the opponent is also quite tired, is down to 2 minutes, has to make 10 more moves to reach move 40. While Arjun is quite fresh here, because the first 20 out of 30 moves were his preparation. They can move his bishop back now from here to f6. The position is fine, but you can also create new chances after check, bishop d4. And Sjugirov plays his knight to c4, and Arjun quickly pushes the pawn to a4. Just clamping down the a3 pawn. This is very useful strategy. But if you put the opponent's pawn on the same color as your bishop, later on it could become a weakness. And you can see Arjun's interest in the game has risen considerably now that there is a weakness to attack, and he thinks there are some chances. Bishop c5 played. And Sanan plays rook c2. He has just 9 seconds on the clock when he made this move, rook c2. Rook comes back to d4. Rook is well placed, defending the pawn. King g2 played, trying to bring his king into the game. Very important. Arjun also does the same. He brings his king to f8. And now rook comes up to c3. So for the time being it feels like this game should be equal. The rook defends the pawn, the rook defends the knight. Okay, black has some more activity, but where is that leading to? Doesn't seem to be anything tangible. King f3. Seems like a natural move here. Very interesting move, knight e5. Attacking the bishop here, threatening knight c6, so the rook comes back, defends the bishop, attacks the knight. A knight to d3 may be slightly inaccurate, maybe knight f3 was better, but knight d3. And now Arjun can drop his bishop back. Bishop b6, we are on move 38, and there's a big plan that black has now, which is to play rook b5 and b3, and actually that would lead to a winning position for black. So white has to be very, very careful. King f3 played. It's okay. And Arjun now going for that plan on move 39 rook b5 that we spoke about, so Sanan under some pressure on the 40th move. But I think he should be able to find this move king d2, which he does, and that is kept the position close to equality when getting 30 minutes, so that is good job by Sanan Sjugirov. But Arjun is just continuing from where he left off. He plays rook b3. Now taking here, this would lead to a very tough endgame, with bishop sitting here, so that's the reason why if king d2 there is bishop a5. So you went knight b4, actually their other possibility was rook c6 trying to do active defense, retries knight b4, with the idea that if you take the rook check, I take back and I take here. But he went king d7, that's a very strong move. Rook d3 check, and now Arjun can actually take it. Rook takes d3. If king takes, you lose the pawn on f2, so knight has to take. And king c6 played. White plays his king to d2. And the bishop comes to d4. Pawn to f3 played. And now king comes up to d5. Fantastic chess here by black. Just improving the position of his king, king c2. And now king c4, entering here. Arjun's king and bishop coordinate so well, but Arjun goes right back to g7. And Sjugirov plays h4. Even though he got 30 minutes extra, he used it all up. He's now down to 2 minutes once again, because his position is so tough. Arjun waiting here, playing bishop f6. Not committing his king just yet, and once king d2 is player. He comes in king c4. King c2 trying to block the king from coming in. And Arjun waits with h5, because if the knight moves away, let's say bishop here, then I can already start attacking this pawn because now there's no knight e5 check. So he plays the move g4. Now Arjun takes. Pawn takes. And I think he's seen it right up to the win, because he simply chops off the pawn here. Bishop takes h4. And to a check now on e5, which is a must, otherwise you're just a pawn down. Trying to win this pawn. I think Arjun has calculated that he's completely winning check. King d5. Takes. And now, a very important move to trap this bishop, which is bishop f6 needs to be found, so that all the squares are taken away. And he finds it, and if you go knight h6, then after king e6, the knight is anyway trapped. So he plays king d3, trying for this one final trick. King e6, trapping the knight. If you now maybe knight h6 needs to be played. Yes, and now you can go bishop g5. Attacking here, and if knight g8, king f7, and the knight is trapped. Let's see if Arjun does it this way. Yes, he does it. Bishop g5. So knight g8 loses 2. Simply king f7. And so he plays knight f5, hoping against hope again for gf, and for black to take this pawn. But of course Arjun is never going to take this pawn. He just comes king d5, shouldering, taking an opposition. And now he will simply win this pawn. This pawn's under control, is the right colored pawn. And so, Sanan Sjugirov has no chance here. It's a resignable position for him.